Thank you all for being here this evening. I call this regular meeting of the Town Plan and Zoning Commission to order on Monday, February 2nd, 2026 at 6:30 p.m. I'll let this person walk in, whoever that might be. Bob. My name is Jeff Kennedy. I'm the chair of the Woodbridge Town Plan and Zoning Commission. Other members of the commission as of January 2026 include Aaron Hoffman, a member, our vice chair, and a returning member. Dr. Ben Cherry, who's a member, and he himself is also returning and seated to my left. Attorney Jim Horwitz is returning member. He has a flight delay that he had today, so he's excused from this meeting, but he's on our team as well. I'd like to welcome Mr. Matt Edwards, a new alternate member. Matt, welcome. Thank you for joining us on the Woodbridge TPZ. Thank you. Mr. Mel Medina is a new alternate member as well. Mel, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Nice to see you in person, and thanks for coming. Paul Schatz is the returning member, and our secretary. He may be a few minutes late, but we'll see how that goes. I think he's coming back from a trip, but Paul Schatz, again, is a returning member. And Rob McClure, nice to meet you. Thank you for coming. We appreciate seeing you. Rob is a new member, and we'd like to extend a warm welcome to you. I look forward to working with all of you this year. And Dr. Bob Wisnia on my far left is a returning alternate member. Dr. Wisnia, thank you for being here. Appreciate you so much. And is he seated?
Yeah, he's a full member.
He is a full member now.
Yeah.
See?
Sure, Chris.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't keep up with that. Okay, fine. In any case, then he's seated for sure. Okay, thank
Yes.
you. Sorry.
And I do, when we have to do a vote, I gotta run downstairs and update my sheet. I didn't bring up my vote sheet.
That's okay. All right. Fine. Okay, thank you. All right.
Maybe the website needs to be corrected then, because I do see, the discussion at the BOS meeting was about Dr. Wisney as an alternate, so I'm agnostic about it, but I think he's listed as an alternate on the website.
Well, the website is often behind, so I'm not going to go by that.
Sure. Yeah, just need to
And,
take a close
I
look.
think they hadn't updated it until after the 6th, and then, no.
okay. We'll get that clarified right away. Okay. We are ably supported by the resourceful Chris Sullivan. Thank you, Chris, for all the work you do for the town. Our town land use analyst and zoning enforcement officer. And this evening, we're joined by additional staff member, Mr. Mike D'Amato, who is our land use planner. Mike, good to see you. Thanks for coming out tonight. We always appreciate your coming. And our attorney, Nick Bamonte, is also on our team, and he was not able to make this evening, so he's not here tonight. We'll excuse him just this one time. Okay? Okay, all right. Nice to see all of you. We are meeting in the central meeting room of Town Hall, which is our typical place where we usually meet with just a few folks here. Some of our meetings get a little bit better attended. It depends on what's on the agenda. Our agenda tonight is available on the town website, and we will be looking into an application for a sign on Amity Road, discussion pre-application on 27 Lucy Street. We also have a plan to have a work session regarding proposed updates and changes to our opportunity housing regulations, and some discussion including the POCD and possibly setting up a committee for the POCD. We'll do that as well. So that's our meeting tonight. Hi, Paul, just in time.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Still me?
Still you.
So we have 3 open officer positions to vote on. The TPZ votes on its officer positions once a year, usually in January when new members come on. And so we're going to go ahead and do that now. So we have 3 open positions to confirm for this year. We have the secretary, the vice chairman, and the chair. So first we're going to start out with the secretary, who fortunately just walked in. So I'm very pleased to nominate Mr. Paul Schatz to be the secretary. Sorry, Paul.
Jeff, I so wanted to be chair.
Do you want to switch?
No.
So Paul, I nominate Paul Schatz to be the secretary. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Dr. Cherry. Thank you so much. Any other nominations? Hearing none, any discussion? All in favor of Mr. Paul Schatz being our secretary for 2026, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Abstentions? Congratulations, Mr. Schatz.
I will do my best to sign those Mylars as best I can.
All right, and also
And get candy.
and correct the chairman when he makes a mistake, because your knowledge of Robert's Rule of Order and other things are very, very good. So we appreciate that you have that. Next item up for bid is vice chairman. Okay. I would like to please nominate Aaron Hoffman to be the vice chair. He's presently the vice chair and a very helpful person in running this commission. So I would like to nominate Aaron Hoffman to be the vice chairman of the TPZ. Is there a second? With you, thank you so much. Second. Any other nominations? Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Abstentions? Aaron, congratulations. It's a pleasure working with you. Thank you very much for your service to the town of Woodbridge. I'm looking for a nomination now, and finally for chair. Would anyone like to nominate the chair?
I'd like to nominate Jeff Kennedy to chair,
Thank
because
you.
the chair does buy food and drink.
Second.
Warder. Okay. Second, Mr. Hoffman, thank you so much. Any other nominations? You could be secretary and chair, Paul. Any other
I can
nominations?
attack you here, too.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Abstentions? Okay, thanks, folks. All right. That actually was pretty smooth. The next one's a little bit more difficult. So we have a Scrog Regional Planning Commission, and we are looking for a volunteer to represent us in our town in TPZ at Scrog. Andrew Skolnick was for many years on Scrog. Can you tell the commission a little bit about what Scrog is, Chris, and just fill us in on that a little bit?
So there are multiple councils of governments throughout the state, and they normally are a group of communities. So we belong to the South Central Regional Council of Governments. There are 15 municipalities in it. And so there are a number of committees, boards, whatever that meet, but the one that this entity gets to appoint to is the Regional Planning Commission. And the main function of the Regional Planning Commission is to meet once a month, and when referrals are made by any of the municipalities within the council itself, or a municipality that may be amending its regs or have an application that's within 500 feet of another municipality that's in the council's boundaries, they get those referrals, and then they have to look at them and mainly see, is there a potential conflict between what's being proposed, an intermunicipal conflict, or is there a potential harm to Long Island Sound from what happens? So it's a once-a-month meeting, and they're now held by Zoom. So you don't have to travel. Andy didn't like it when they stopped being in person and having pizza, but
Yeah.
what can I tell you? So that's the main function.
Chris, how is it usually an hour, hour and a half? How long is the meeting?
I honestly don't know.
Okay.
I doubt that it's more than 2 hours.
And did you say it's once a month?
It's once a month. It's typically the second Thursday of the month.
Okay. And second Thursday month. Okay. And anything else for potential members to know about?
No.
Okay. And they represent Woodbridge and what we're doing on the TPZ. Did they present ever? Like if we have some changes to regs or something, will they present
So
that?
we've gone before them most recently for the recent change that you made to your zoning regulations. We also referred the Plan of Conservation and Development to them. And when applications such as the one that was a subdivision down on Merritt Avenue came in, because it abutted the town of New Haven, that was also a referral that went to them. So those are the kinds of things that they're looking for. The council also assists the town in other things, but it's not a function of the Regional Planning Commission.
Understood. So commission members, I'm looking for a volunteer that could serve on Scrog. Don't make eye contact, Bob. It's dangerous. You will. Thank you. Okay. Anybody else want to serve? Okay. Thank
They're
you
like,
very much.
you could be like, anybody but me.
I got something else I think coming up that I have to do, but All
We
right.
have to buy food because it's the first meeting of the year, which there's no food, so the
Double
previous three
food
chairs
next time.
have done that.
All right. Thank you, Paul. All right. The next body, the next municipal body that we have representation on is the West Rock Ridge State Park Council. Dr. Cherry, are you on that now?
Yes,
Would you like to continue that?
I don't feel like I'm adding much to the group. I am a little overcommitted in terms of meetings. I would happily yield that if somebody would enjoy participating and could bring their expertise and passion to the group.
Why don't you tell us what it is, and then we'll see, we'll canvass the group.
Could I defer to Ms. Sullivan?
Sure.
She's served longer and knows the
I
group
know-
better.
I think
Miss.
she has like
it
family on
Mrs.?
this, right? Don't you have
My,
like
my
inherited-
father served on it for many years.
Yeah.
So the West Rock Ridge State Park Council is the only state park in the state that has a council that helps to oversee it. And so because the park is situated in New Haven, Woodbridge, Bethany, and Hamden, there are representatives from each of those communities as well as from the governor, and it's headed by the Commissioner of Parks up at DEEP. Meet twice a month, or twice a year, typically in October and April. It used to be in person, now it's in Zoom. And so the main function, which we didn't get to do all that often, is there's a requirement that any property that's in the view shed of West Rock Ridge State Park, before it can be sold, has to go to the council for review to determine if the state might want to purchase it. So within the past half year, there are 2 parcels, which is an unusual thing, that are actually in the process of being picked up by the state to include in the park. One is at the end of Lunar Drive in Woodbridge, and then the other one is on Litchfield Turnpike next to the Darling House. So in terms of the town, it's, these are pieces that are going to be conserved for open space. There's no charge to the town. The state pay for it, so somehow we're paying for it. But it's included within the park. We also look at how the park is being maintained. So, for instance, there is eventually going to be repair work done to the Heroes Tunnel. And as part of that, they're going to do some improvements to the road that goes up to the ventilator shafts at the top of the ridge. There's not a lot of funds that the state spends on maintaining the road work within the park. So anytime we can get some funding to help pave some of those roads, it's a help. So we're going to be discussing that, I'm sure, in April. So as I say, it's a two meetings a year. I am the rep from Bethany, but I also obviously participate on behalf of Woodbridge. And that's it.
And what was that time commitment?
The meetings typically start at 4 and they run to around 5:36 on a Thursday night.
And is that once a month as well?
No, it's twice a year,
Twice a year?
April
Oh,
and
that's so
October.
easy.
Oh my God, it's one of the new guys.
It's like signing Mylar.
All right, thanks. So Ben Cherry's been serving presently for the town, thank you so much, and he's a little bit on the busy side. Is there a volunteer to take a twice a year meeting for an hour to represent Woodbridge at the West Rock Ridge State Park Council?
There are also 2 other reps that come from the town. One is appointed by the Board of Selectmen and one is appointed by the Conservation Commission. So the town actually has 3 reps that serve on the council.
We can come back to that and do some emails and find a volunteer.
Yeah, because the next meeting won't be until
Jim's
April.
not here, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we don't want to
So-
just slide it
We
on.
get a lot of people around now.
We'll make sure Jim goes. What's that?
Are we doing introductions or anything, or did I miss that?
You missed that.
We actually, we had music. We came into music and confetti.
Lights.
Yeah.
Huh. It's like when my son pitches,
Paul
they
me,
have
Val,
a walk-up
Mel me,
song.
Paul, Rob me, Paul me, Rob.
There's a whole dance party.
Matt, yeah, it was
Hey.
funny.
So Jim is the other one missing?
Yes.
Who are the alternates?
Well, that was interesting. Mel Medina's an alternate, and Matt is an alternate. Rob is a member, and
Who's the third? Bob?
we're not sure because actually there was maybe we have to look into that, I think so.
Okay.
It's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's my understanding that Dr. Wisnia is a full member now.
Oh, so someone else is the alternate?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll find out.
What happened after the Board of Selectmen meeting, I just remember, Selectwomen Morella and Urbano gave very impassioned and articulate reasons why you should be a full member. I don't think that's how it went, but I certainly could be mistaken.
So we'll check.
Yeah, we'll get that straightened out. Okay.
I said it was your boyish good looks.
I'm still going to be in this squad.
All right.
Either way, I'm staying.
Paul, when you're ready, I'll move on in the agenda.
I'm ready.
All right, thanks. New business. We have 2 items tonight for new business. The first is a application that require a special exception under permit table 4.7.3 for a signage. Chris, is anybody here tonight for the applicant, or were they going to come out at the same time we had the public hearing?
They're gonna come when you have the public hearing because they have to do a presentation for the hearing and there's no point in doing a presentation twice.
Makes sense.
So basically, it's adding a second sign to the building at 270 Amity Road. So you have it in your, I just emailed it to you.
You
And I handed it
emailed
out
us, and
tonight.
Yeah.
And I
did
handed
wanna
out
say
to hard
this is
copy tonight.
There's no exhibit A on my,
Oh, well, I printed out.
the
what
back.
they-
oh, is that on the back? Okay. All right.
It's the mathnasium.
Can we schedule that, please, for the first meeting in March?
Certainly.
A public hearing, presentation by the applicant, commission can ask questions, and public can make comments about it. It's the sign's next to an existing sign, is that correct?
No, there's like a little peak.
Yeah.
There's actually 2 little peaks on the front of the building, and this would occupy one of the peaks.
Neon or just,
We don't allow.
no,
neon.
neon? Okay, good, all right, just wanted to know. All right, so scheduled. Thank you, Chris, appreciate it. Next item is Buddy DeGennaro is here to do a pre-application briefing to us. I think that's the right language. Please, if you would, Buddy, come up and sign in if you could. Just sign your name and
Well, he would, but I didn't give him a sheet, and I know who he is. so
I
it's
know,
good.
we all, yes, okay, we will get you properly recorded and documented. Thank you for coming out tonight. A lot of us in the community know of you or know you, and thank you for coming, so let's hear what you have to say.
Thank you, Commissioner, and welcome new commission members. I sat on this board, or commission years ago, as well as the Zoning Board of Appeals, so I know the hard work that everybody puts into it. So thank you for your work and welcome new members. I'm here, I passed out a little package about a property. I'm not sure if everybody knows, but I'm a real estate broker in town, and I'm currently marketing a property at 27 Lucy Street. It's right across from Amity Meat, set back from the road, so a lot of times people don't even know it's there. But I'm representing the owner, John Svensson, whose father was the original, one of the original owners of the property when it was built in 1970. They ran an insurance agency out of there. He recently sold his agency. There are a couple of tenants in there right now, so it's all commercial space. And if you poke through the paperwork that I sent you, you'll get a little feel for what the hallways look like, what the space looks like. The tricky part about this property, it's over 5,000 square feet. It's a good-sized building. The tricky part is that, any investor or person's looking to continue its use as commercial, there's very limited parking. There's only 12 parking spots. Kind of rule of thumb is for every 1,000 square feet, you need about 4 parking spots. And if it was medical, you would need much more than that. So there's very limited parking spots. So we've had a few potential lookers consider converting it to residential use. And it lends itself very well to it. It's got a center hallway. It's got lower levels where you could put the mechanicals. So the thought is possibly to convert it to 4 condominiums or 4 apartments, and those would be, the units would be approximately 900 square feet each, and then have a full storage room down below. The exterior of the building would not be added on to, and the building would not, be expanded at all. It is located in the BI zone, which does not allow residential use, and so that's why I'm here, just to kind of get a little feel for, your temperature on such a conversion. You'll see I put a map in there also of where the property is located. And to the left of this property, if you're facing from the street, is the Woodbridge Senior Housing, which is senior rentals. Used to be the old Warner School, for anybody who knew Woodbridge way back when. So that's a residential use. And then the two dwellings to the right are also located in the BI zone. One's a two-family, and the other one is a mixed use with there was like a hair salon, and then there's two residential apartments above it. So there is residential use there that is currently in the BI zone. So the thought is that if you put in 4 units, you could have 3 parking spots per unit. And the units would be very affordable for, folks who want to stay in Woodbridge, or, the one potential buyer was given a range of condominium in the 375 to 400 range. And I don't have any rental numbers on that, but, that could keep, people in town who want to stay in town, or bring in some, young. It's, 1 or 2 bedrooms, so it's not going to be a large family type of thing. So, but, so we're looking for a potential amendment to the land use, requirements to allow residential use in the BI zone. So before we put in a formal application, we're just trying to, see if you have any questions, seeing what your thoughts are. But I'm sure in the new POCD, there's probably, wants and needs for additional housing in town, especially, at a price point like that. So,
For sure.
Yeah.
So Chris, can you is this a change in regulation, or how does that work? I mean, it's literally like 10 feet away from another residential house.
So the residential
Lines are
houses that
drawn.
are there are
Yeah.
pre-existing non-conforming uses.
Okay.
So the only area that you allow apartments currently is in the GBA zone, so it's a portion of the general business district. It's restricted in that area to being apartments over a retail or commercial or office space below. And then obviously in Dev 1, which is directly to the north, you also have the over 55 housing that just is almost completed by Toll. You have the assisted living facility of Coachman Square. So there are residential uses above it, but for a very specific use, not just a general apartment type use. So,
Understood. So, any thoughts? You want to say something?
Yeah, I'm sorry, and I may not have heard it properly. So are these going to be for purchase or for rent or both?
So we're looking at either option, potential for condominium units for purchase,
Okay.
or, rental units, I think the preference of one of the potential buyers is to make it condominium, so, there would be four units, coming on the market if it was to get approved.
And if they were rentals, would any of them be under the qualify for affordable housing?
Well, we could certainly ask that, with 4 units, maybe one of them, I think could potentially be, so that's something that, certainly could be a condition of approval.
So, buddy, I'm open to trying to help you get something done this way residentially. I want to hear some more commission members and have what they have to say. Do you have an attorney yet that you're working with?
No, and that's the
Or is
reason,
it very early
before
on?
we, hired an attorney, just, because obviously for a potential buyer, they're taking a risk if they, were to hire an attorney to put an application in and not get some kind of feeling of, whether it's something that's gonna, have some, strong feeling one way or the other, you know, so, but yeah, certainly when we do put an application in, we will have an attorney do that.
Well, maybe we could have our town planner take a look at this,
Okay,
specific just to that location. Also educate us commissioners on, it's literally, I think Paul uses a line before, like you have certain lines, we're literally like across the street, depending on which development district you're in or
Right.
what. It's literally, or you have, Chris, what was the residential next door? It was, what did you call it? It was not
Non-conforming.
non-conforming, right, to the, but long, okay. So maybe we can have our town planner take a look at that. We can, see if this is gonna be something narrow or if we could broaden out some changes.
right, no, we appreciate that, you know, and I don't know, Chris and I were talking about the opportunity housing, possibility, if it falls into that at all.
It could, at some point when that's done, it could
Right.
fall into, if you have 25%, if you have 4 units and one is affordable, you'd be at 25%.
Right.
We're working on our opportunity housing now, okay? But we could either do this parallel to it or alongside it or include it. But I want to hear what other people have to say. I feel we should try to do something here.
I have another question.
Please.
Because I never remember this stuff. Chris, is there in the regs, or can you point to where we could see where the zones are down there?
Yeah.
It's in the map that's at the back of the book.
I don't carry a book, I just have it in
Well-
PDF.
So along Lucy, on both sides of Lucy is BI as you go, and then BI is over on Litchfield Turnpike, going up to Buddy's office on Litchfield Turnpike.
Okay.
Behind this is residential T3C, which is a small area of residential units, and those are 5,000 square feet lots. And that runs buffers between the BI and then Dev 1. So like where the Woodbridge Running Company is,
Yep.
on the backside of that becomes Dev 1, which is Development 1. Along Amity Road, going up to 270 Amity Road is general business, and that includes Hazel Terrace and Sheldon. And then you have Dev 2, which is on the other side of the river, at the base of West Rock.
And in GB, you can't have it's so called.
Did anybody find this in the book? I don't
It should be in the back, Bob, but Bob's book right in
I
front.
don't see it. I have the PDF,
Even for the map?
This
Yeah,
map, this map,
Yeah.
That's what I want.
GB has no
but it
residential.
doesn't have the streets on it, right?
Correct.
Where there's
Or
the
only-
overlay of GBA,
Yeah, that's not.
you have
Problem is you don't
the
have the streets on
opportunity
it.
to have apartments on the second
I'm not sure
level. We
this
haven't
map-
seen it happen yet,
Should get another one.
but the intent was when it was adopted that something like 214 Amity, where you have the tattoo parlor right now down on the first floor,
Right.
and the backside opens to Selden, that could potentially at some point be apartments. And likewise, 270 Amity or 260 Amity, or even where Wells Fargo is,
Yeah.
or 180 Amity Road where there's a second floor where there was an insurance company, or the higher part of Selden Plaza, which faces onto Hazel Terrace. So there are some opportunities that are there that just haven't been taken up yet.
but Chris, with this, in this BI zone, to prove this, you have to have like an exception or something like that to,
So you can't grant exceptions of what your regulations.
Zoning
If he
change.
were to seek that, he would seek a variance.
A variance or change
So
what's
what
allowed in the
he's,
zone.
what he's trying to see is if you'd be looking at the potential for changing the zoning to allow some residential uses in the BI zone.
That would be more
I mean, there
general.
currently are residential uses in there that are holdovers from when that area was developed residentially.
Chris, can we get a map of the district with the streets?
Yeah.
And what it, I can go through my PDF, but I feel like it's gonna,
Well, if you're going to refer this to Michael to look at, then in the interim, I can get you a map
Okay.
and
Yeah.
give you an idea.
thank you.
Yeah, we would like to try, buddy, to get you where you're trying to go.
Sounds great, yeah.
And we all have to, think about it as a group and see what regs might need to be changed, how we ought to do it, more narrow, more broad. So this would go to Mike D'Amato, our town planner, who's sitting right behind you and hearing all of
I
this.
emailed you.
Okay.
Pretty high def.
Glad to give you a tour of the building if you
Not the
like,
same
Mike.
one.
Well, you're a doctor and I'm not.
I don't know,
Yeah.
It's helpful,
but it is.
it's helpful that,
Okay, I'll send that to you.
this is pre-application, so you didn't just put in that, you didn't do something, okay?
Exactly,
Because
yep.
this keeps, we can be a little bit fluid, all right? And we can talk amongst ourselves, we can work with the town planner, we can work with Chris and get her ideas and recommendations. So if you don't put in an application just yet, we can kind of come up with some ideas. We might want to use this to broaden out some changes down in that area, or
Right.
we might come back and say, let's do this on a very narrow basis because, there's time limitations. The properties, is the MLS listed now?
It is,
So
yes.
it's out there.
It's out
right?
there, yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
so there's some time element, that you have, you're facing a little bit, but I think you can tell them that we have some interest in
Right.
helping you.
No, that sounds great. The owner would be very happy to hear that, so.
Anybody else want to make some comments on that directionally, or? Pretty much in agreement on this? Okay. All right. Paul, you want to say anything else? We'll get our town planner involved.
Yeah, I spoke my piece. Will there be food involved there?
Oh, my gosh. Okay.
I would like to echo what Commissioner Schatz said. I think
He wants food too.
That's one.
something you said earlier, Paul. I think at least one capital A affordable unit would be really desirable, just
Gotcha.
as part of this larger effort that you know about. So thank you.
Absolutely.
That would be very
No,
helpful.
very
Thank
good.
you.
So, well, I appreciate your time, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
buddy.
you,
Thank
thanks
you.
for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for clearing this too. We appreciate
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you for looking just like the billboard. It's just so easy to recognize.
As long as it's not in the post office.
Maybe you'll sign these for everybody on the way out.
All right, thank you very much. So we're going to move into the next section of our agenda, which is the work session. The first item that we're going to discuss is we're going to have a presentation from Mr. Michael D'Amato, who is our town planner, regarding opportunity housing section of the zoning regulations and options that we want to be looking at as a town to expand our opportunity housing. Please, Paul, to you, Mike.
Wow.
Guys
So
in the back
fancy.
are surprised.
I know we have one up there.
Whoa.
See that one there, and then this one. I know it.
So when you have presentations now, you're gonna be able to look forward.
Tremendous.
Wow.
Thank you.
Some of my children would like
So
to-
those guys aren't going to get the new fire truck. Huh? We
Thank
got the
you.
TVs.
No comment.
Sorry.
Well, I'll follow along with a hard copy.
So, I was thinking about sort of the homework item that I had, or Nick and I had after we left 2 meetings ago, and the commission's overall discussion about housing and the regs and everything that we kind of already went through. And the last meeting, the commission sort of said we want to see options, we want to see what's out there. And sort of based on where I'm sitting now, that creates a couple of issues. One, and Nick would opine on this a little bit more if he were here, we've looked into and talked to folks in maybe towns that you might think of looking at and saying, oh, what are they doing? Let's see there. And some of the guidance has been, do not follow what we are doing. For one reason or another, it's not working, we don't like it, we've had issues, don't copy us. So, there's a little bit of that. And sort of in that same vein, overall, whether we have that feedback from them or not, what regulations are on the books doesn't mean that they've worked, doesn't mean that they're good, doesn't mean that they're going to create a development that is sort of what we're all envisioning. And with the market and land and all the different things, it's not exactly a copy and paste. And so after thinking about it, Nick and I put our heads together, met last week and kind of talked through a bunch of stuff. I thought it would make more sense for several reasons to take a half a step back and just look at what levers you can pull, rather than just let's look at a bunch of regulations that other towns have. So what I did was I put together just this very, very brief overview of things that I think the commission should consider that will equate to more housing, period. Not a specific type, a specific kind, in a specific location. That is down the road. And these are things that were sort of in my mind, things that have been suggested or touched upon or implied, whether a person knows it or not. So I think they're all sort of worthy of consideration. So I wanted to start here. And I think this will then inform what type of regulation changes or new regulations you might be interested in. And then if we do want to go and find places where similar approaches have been successful, at least now I know that I'm looking at regulations that have sort of are leaning into the same approach that it sounds like you guys want to take. Does that make sense so far?
So far, so good.
Okay.
Can I interrupt?
Easy
one
part
second?
makes
Yes,
sense.
you can.
Because we've got 3 new people here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you mind just sharing what our current regs are? Like a quick 30-second overview? Because we just changed them back to where they were in November of 2024.
I think that the body of the regulations in their entirety, when you look at housing, there's kind of 3 pieces. There's certain components of the regulations that don't work because they conflict with the market. There's other components of the regulations which don't work because they conflict with what people may feel is appropriate. And then I guess from there, there's probably some language that is perhaps a little bit overly restrictive and could be refined, I think, to be made better, but
Michael,
also.
this is in the opportunity regs. that you're
I'm talking
right?
about housing.
You talk, all of our regs
We're talking
are
about
any
housing.
in town, right?
Yes,
Okay.
because I don't think that all of your eggs lay in the opportunity housing zone basket, and I think that we need to look at that reg in its entirety.
So the eggs that could lead to additional housing opportunities, housing diversity, or contribute to affordable housing potential within the regs.
More housing diversity, yeah.
Got it,
So I've broken this memo up into 3 categories that I think are sort of separate and distinct. So the first one pertains to accessory dwelling units. And I've kind of put, again, these are just thoughts. I want to see if you're going to clap or throw something at me, and this will sort of help me get my head around it. A lot of this I approached sort of independently and without all of the feedback that we've gotten so far, because I think to some extent it becomes harder to find the solution when you're so focused on all the different kind of pieces that have made up the last couple of months, at least since I've been involved. So I was sort of trying to answer this question to some degree from scratch. Obviously, I know what regulations you have and all of the other things that have been involved with the discussion, but the universe of solutions is not so extensive that we're looking to come up with something that no one has ever thought of before. We're looking to take various tools and approaches that exist across many different communities and figure out what makes sense and how to refine it. So sort of with that in mind, the three topics that are here, the first one is accessory dwelling units. And I'm gonna just paraphrase, not read verbatim. The first one really focuses on trying to legalize any existing accessory dwelling units which may already be here. And there's a lot of value to that, aside from creating accessory dwelling units, which are cheaper and more accessible housing and all of those things. If they're not on the books now, town records, town data is not complete, but they really should be reviewed for life safety concerns. You don't want people living in something that hasn't been reviewed for those purposes. So there's a lot of reasons why that might be useful. The next piece is related to encouraging more accessory dwelling units. So one of the pieces of legislation that was passed in 21, Public Act 2129, allows an accessory apartment or accessory dwelling unit, whatever you want to call it, to qualify to the town's percentage, 10% affordable percentage, if it's deed restricted, but it doesn't need to be deed restricted to the traditional 40-year mark that you'd see for another dwelling unit. So with an ADU, it's at 10, right? So that's much more manageable to a residential homeowner. So one of the things that I am suggesting here is the discussion with the Board of Selectmen related to some type of a tax abatement program to further encourage existing ADUs to be deed restricted. And you could go so far as to look at the difference between the affordable rates and the market rates, and that delta could then become an abatement. So that's a little bit more out of the
So
box.
that's an idea to expand the number of ADUs in town.
Right, right.
Let me stop you there.
Sure.
On ADUs, the state made some changes, or they had some legislation not too long ago.
Right.
And we incorporated that into our regs. So
Yes.
we made that we voted it in. Right?
Yes.
So do you know what I'm talking about?
So that was also part of 2129, which said that towns have to either opt out or they had to allow accessory dwelling units by right. And so, yes, you do have, I cite the section, well, the E-code section 495-15 CC, which is where you have your current accessory dwelling unit regulations or requirements housed. But if these exist in town now, and again, one of the main reasons why people don't like the idea of going the affordable housing route, if it's a smaller number, if they're not traditional developers, is because the normal deed restriction is 40 years to qualify as towards the 10%. With ADUs, based on this legislation, it's only 10. And so I think that could be something that, again, could help us sort of chip away. So that's sort of one bucket of changes.
Understood.
Two, and this is, there's sort of hints and notes of this sort of incorporated into the opportunity housing reg, but it doesn't, in my mind at least, and you can correct me, come out and make this sort of very clear and concise statement, but inclusionary zoning. So there's another section of the statutes, 8-2I, which allows towns to adopt inclusionary zoning requirements. Basically, you have to build affordable housing units. Not you may, but you have to. So you are going to build a certain type of development, and our regulations say that 20% of those units have to be deed restricted, period. And then it gives you options for how you get there, which I've outlined. So option one is that you build it and you deed restrict it. Easiest option. But in certain circumstances, that does not work. And so option two, which again is enabled by statute, is that they pay a fee in lieu of creating that unit.
Okay.
You decide how to calculate that fee. Some towns do it based on construction cost. You can decide. And that money then goes into a housing trust fund, which then the town uses to administer or create affordable housing units. That could be renovating existing housing authority properties. That could be buying down deed restrictions. It could be building housing. As long as it's related to affordable housing, the funds go there. And so again, sometimes that becomes an option which makes more sense, because if you have sort of a conduit established through either a local nonprofit or within the community that could make use of those funds, you can take somebody who doesn't want to build it but is willing to buy their way out of it and hand those funds to someone who's already got the setup to do it, and now you've sort of converted that in a way that can work for multiple parties.
Mike, is this something that people use as an overlay over?
No, so
How
this
did-
would be
how
this would be something that would go into the regs.
But I mean, where would it be? Like, you have to have a piece of land, so.
Yeah.
So how does that work?
So this would apply to anyone constructing or creating dwelling units, residential, multifamily dwelling units going forward. So it would be,
Thank you.
it could be like an addendum to the opportunity housing zone or another section within it, an additional obligation, if you will. And the third thing that is allowed within this statute is for the purchase of density bonuses. So you can, again, establish a baseline, but then create criteria by which someone could buy additional dwelling units through writing the town a check, which then goes into the housing trust fund. So this makes sense in a place where, let's say you had a piece of property in the most intensely developed, area of town, it had access to utilities, et cetera, and there were no concerns about density. But your density requirements in the regulations say the max they could have is 50. Well, let's say they want 100. Well, then they could, in theory, buy another 50 units of density, and that money would go into a trust fund, which then could be used to create affordable housing. So these are tools that many towns have, which they may not be required to use, they may never use them, but every developer may have a different preference, and so right now, it sort of feels like we don't have them on the table, and I think it's worth a sort of additional conversation. The last piece, and so on the second page would be what I'm calling opportunity housing amendments. But again, I really think that when we get a little bit farther beyond this, there's probably value in just looking at that and deciding like how this is all going to shift. So in my mind, I am not considering how we're going to nip and tuck the opportunity housing reg to just make this kind of work or to fix it a little bit. I'm looking at this holistically as how do we fix this problem. So I'm suggesting at this point that the consideration be for comprehensive amendments to the opportunity housing regulations. And I sort of landed on this tiered structure for how the commission would review housing developments going forward. And the location, size, and all of the nuts and bolts of that development would determine what tier of approval it sort of went through. So the reason that I ultimately decided to stay in this structure, and this kind of gets to your previous, your informal discussion that you just had, is as we discussed, or I think as Kathy Hunter might have mentioned when the last meeting that I was at, I think she gave an overview of the housing legislation. So one of the larger components of HB 8002, which is November Special Session Act 25-1, is that as of July 1, up to 9 units housing has to be allowed by right in any commercial or mixed use zone. Well, it's called summary review, but basically that means you establish the standards, there's no special permit, there's no public hearing, there's no review.
So the 9 units by right is now part of that legislative piece?
It will be on July 1.
Okay, stay
It's
right
not
there.
in place
All right, let
yet.
me absorb this for just one
Yep.
second. Okay. So establish specific standards to allow for the development of up to 9 units in specified zones. So who specifies those zones?
You.
Okay.
So, yeah, so what I'm thinking is we're going to create this approach, A, B, C, D, those are some examples, which align with the requirements of this new act that was passed. And then we would create some additional language for the summary review process, which is what HB 8002 requires. So essentially, unlike 8-30G, where the statute says zoning standards do not apply, this process for 8002 allows for you to ask them to go through a summary review process, which essentially means that the standards need to be defined. So you can have a minimum lot size, you can establish a building design, you can establish a height, you can establish a lot coverage maximum. So you can get into more traditional bulk standards, provided every single point that you set in that review is non-discretionary, yes or no. So the good news is you have some control. There is an additional provision for health and safety, which if after all those yes/no questions have been answered, if the answer is yes, 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 and they meet it, but for some reason there's a health and safety concern, which they did not define, and people are a little bit conflicted on what that exactly means, you could still, in theory, go deny the application. But we're going to be living in a world in a matter of months where someone will have to come in here, or will be able to come in here, meet your site plan standards, your setbacks, et cetera, and say, I want 8 units. And you are going to have to say yes. So I'm suggesting that we just align both of those, and we just create that as the lowest tier. And then I'm suggesting we create a second tier, which would again be for the plus 9 units. I think there could be some middle ground there, so there would be a ceiling to the total number of units. We would provide for, specific zones for that, which would then have increased height, density, et cetera. That's where we could feather in, if you were interested, some opportunity for density bonuses or fee in lieu of, with increased discretion. Because once we get above the 9, then the as of right summary review does not apply.
So if you're more than 9 units, it's not as of right.
Correct.
Under
You
the-
can choose to make it as of right, but statute does not say that you have to.
Understood.
Yep.
The tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, just organizationally, is that is that how your ideas are organized?
This is
That's-
just how, I'm sort of saying, with tier 1, you get a little bit of housing and a little bit of review. Tier 2, you get a little bit more housing, but more review. And then there's tier 3.
Understood. I understand. All right, so continue, please, on tier 2.
Can I?
Please,
Yeah.
please. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry,
Yeah. No.
before you go on, I'm not understanding one piece of this, which is, in July, you said people will be able to come in and claim a right to 9 units in commercial and mixed use.
Right.
How would us establishing this tier 1 change or affect that right under the new law?
Because as part of this, we would be creating that summary review process. So we would be establishing.
Sorry, I understand that, but I want to interrupt because that's the
Yeah.
part I want to ask about. So if we establish the summary review process, does that then give us permission not to, basically in the absence of a summary review process, is that when the state law becomes in effect, or is it having a summary review process of our own that allows us to not follow that portion of the law? You know what I mean?
Nope. So so as of July 1, this becomes allowable statewide. If we don't have any standards for housing, for how this use would be addressed in a commercial or mixed use zone, then they would rely on the standards for the commercial zone as they are. So they would rely on that. You'd look at it like you were looking at a retail store, setbacks, et cetera. So we're not creating a process in lieu of, and we can't avoid it if there's not some state thing that kind of comes down and sticks over it, kind of like the ADUs. This is saying it would come in and be permitted just like a commercial or mixed use building would, except it's up to 9 units. The guidance that is being communicated down from everybody above us at COGS and OPM is that the way to handle this is to establish specific site plan standards for 0 to 9 unit developments into the regulations, so that when someone comes in your commercial zone and they say, I want to build 8 units, instead of you holding them to the retail standard,
I see.
you have your own little.
Thank you.
And so you could pump those standards up to some degree and maybe define them a little bit more strictly than they would be if it was retail.
Can we pause for a second?
Yep.
I know, and you're going way too fast for my small brain. Because I can't, I need to think and process it. There's a bunch of things that I don't understand. First of all, I don't support, doesn't matter what I think, but I don't like the idea of creating more layers in town with a housing trust fund. I mean, that to me, we're a small little town. We're not like even Hamden or Orange. So to now put more bureaucracy in a town that is cutting staff and a hiring freeze seems, kind of against what the town's trying to do. That's one. I wish, is there anywhere you could direct us or email us a bullet point summary of the new law changes?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
that'd be really helpful, because I know, like, my head's spinning thinking about all these things. Now I'm trying to focus on this 9-unit thing. So, does the 9-unit reg mean that there's no public hearing?
You states that this law says you cannot have a hearing, cannot have a special permit or
Sorry.
special exception.
Okay,
in a commercial or industrial.
I get it, right.
That's-
So, if we create this reg, I'm sorry, the state's going to force us to do this. That's what you're saying. So a developer comes in between 1 and 9 units and says, this is what I'm going to do in these zones. We lay forth the connect the dots. The developer works with Chris. We're essentially out of the picture. Is that what it boiled down?
Yes.
Okay. And no town, there's no way around the 0 to 9.
No.
Okay.
So staying on this point, so we just heard from Buddy, that will just fit right in. Is that what you're
So you
saying?
can just wait till July.
He can just wait till July and do it then. Is that, do I have that right?
Well-
I mean, it's very complicated, but is that true?
It is likely true. It depends on ultimately what standards the commission adopts, So there may be things that, let's say you require, I don't know, I'm trying to think of something crazy so that it's not something that anybody picks up on later. Let's say you require all these developments to have a roof deck,
Okay.
and they don't have one, right? So now
Fire
they
pit.
may have to make amendments.
So do they then have to come into us?
No,
for-
everything has to be yes or no.
It has to be as of right, 0 to 9 period.
Right,
So
so
they
it would
can't,
be
there's no there's no exemptions.
nothing.
Okay.
They have to, so the good news is they have to meet every standard.
Right.
If they check no to any of the requirements, then it's denied. The downside is that you don't have the ability to say, well, we want a little bit more buffering here,
Right.
or we want to swap out this lighting fixture, that type of thing.
When once we do this, let's say hypothetically we passed it, it's done. Is that irrevocable, or can it be changed at a later date?
As long as it continues to meet the standards in the statute, which that it follows the summary review process and those yes/no questions, you could amend it. The risks of not doing it are that they're going to fall to whatever your commercial site design standards are now. And I've already had a town last week where a developer basically said, I want to proactively have this conversation with the town. Here's a reg that I think you should adopt that addresses 8002. So you're going to let yourselves sort of be open to the market suggesting to you, perhaps through the text amendment process, what they think you might consider, and that may leave you with gaps. So right now, the scramble across many communities is getting a set of regulations in place for the effective review of 0 to 9 in any non-fully residential zone, essentially.
And again, 0 to 9 is coming July 1.
Yes.
Okay, come hell or high water, it's done. There's no appeal. It's happening.
The law's already been passed. It's just that it has an effective date of July 1.
Okay.
This must have people scrambling. You've already said that, but I mean, this is a lot for zoning boards to take in all these small towns.
There are other components of that bill which are more controversial, I would say, than this.
But they already passed.
Yes.
That passed too.
Yes.
Does the more
That's why whatever you send us, we greatly
Yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah.
Will you be able
Where
to,
does this, I'm sorry, where does this fit in with the residential zones? I mean, that's a totally
The-
different.
So what I'm suggesting is that we create a pathway in Woodbridge for 0 to 9 units. And we will have two sets of standards. One set of standards for the stuff that we can control because it's in a residential zone, which we determine, to make sense, et cetera. And then one to be the path that we have no choice but to establish because of statute. And so we're going to say, okay, what type of development is this? How many units? So 0 to 9, okay, here's the requirements. And then based on the zone, you will have a set of standards. But I'm suggesting that this lower threshold of review, because we're talking about a handful of units, there's not a lot of there, which is why many communities are not really that bothered by this. There's other stuff that I think they're focused on, but
Like what?
the shifting away from, so this, I've actually heard a lot of feedback about people's perspectives on the current affordable housing plan that the town has, Woodbridge's affordable housing plan. So those are now done. You will
So
not,
we filed with the state of Connecticut, I think in the year 2022, an affordable housing plan that's on our website.
Yep.
We had a commission, the housing committee did it. They
Right.
published with the state. It was reviewed by the board of selectmen and it went to the state.
Mm-hmm.
So that affordable housing plan is being set aside, right? That's what you're saying?
that
Under this,
legislation
right?
was amended statewide, and so now it's being replaced with a sort of housing growth plan.
Yes.
And those will be established by the COGS regional plans. And so, long and short is that OPM is going to come up with a methodology of figuring and calculating how many units. are-
OPM, can you just say what
The
that
Office
is?
of Policy and Management.
At the state level?
Correct. That is
Right. I just want this into our record.
Yeah,
Okay,
that is
so
this-
OPM is gonna set, please.
create a
go.
methodology, a calculation, a formula for calculating units. And they are then going to hand that number, that bucket, one number, to COGS. And so your council of government will then get that number from OPM and have to figure out then how to distribute that number across all of its member municipalities. So Woodbridge will get a number, which is a portion of a number that came from OPM, from your COG, and it will be X. It's probably going to be lower than you expect, but it will be a number. And they're going to say 25. And so then the regional housing growth plan, or if the town decides to opt out of that and prepare their own, will have to be a plan for how you're going to create the number assigned to you. So,
What period of time?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
Over 5 years. The period of time to complete or the
Yeah.
the planning process?
No, to build the number, the 25. And I know it's not 25.
The horizon of the growth plan, I guess, is what you're asking, which you said is 5, and that sounds right. I focused on the summary review stuff.
So that
but-
number, those units would have to be completed in the 5 year or just planned?
No.
The state is embarking on what is effectively a 3 to 5 year planning process, which that has different stages to it. The first stage is beginning this May with OPM, which is going to be defining what is acceptable land use. That actually has big implications for towns. Those definitions could also be amended and changed later on by OPM at will, just as an FYI. Those then, as Mike pointed out, go to COGS, and then Woodbridge as a town. That's why whoever's appointed to the local COG actually is really important, because the town has to make a decision about whether you're going to go along with the regional plan or you're going to go it alone. To go it alone is a unique choice because you're going to have a lot more scrutiny over the plan. And as I understand it, the plans that are both created by the COGS, or if the town decides to go it alone, then those plans are reviewed by a committee. Those appointments are being are happening now. Ultimately, that plan that's in place is what goes for approval, and so that's why it's like multi-year. It's like a multi-year step in progress, and all of the aspects of the laws that were changed, which feel fairly kind of out of nowhere, are rooted in this idea of here are some kind of root decisions we're pushing people to make, and with some flexibility, as I understand, you're effectively saying, just so I understand it right, 9 units in a mixed-use commercial space, from the perspective of a developer, is likely an inefficient use. They would want to, because of the unit cost and just the finances, often developers are looking for scale, and so I'm just trying to understand if what we would likely get are more than 9+ unit type applications.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what your existing commercial building stock is to know how that might look, but yes, in the world that we live in now, it is becoming so expensive to just get to the point of breaking ground and then having to break ground that it makes less and less sense to build smaller projects. And so I think that's why I'm trying to create opportunity for the commission to have different points by which there's a conversation that can happen between the person pushing the project this way and you having to figure out what to do with it. And so in all of these different cases, I think there's places for that. But for the 0 to 9, I think that, that if somebody wanted to do 8 units, they wouldn't be able to do any of these other bonuses or whatever else because they would fall out of the summary review. So they'd have to stick to that. So, yeah, there's a lot in there. There's a lot of changes for how you get to a moratorium. So they adjusted things that you can do to be eligible for more points towards a temporary affordable housing moratorium. So yes, we will get you an overview of the bill. I was part of a presentation 2 weeks ago between all the COGs, rolling this out to planners. And one of the most frustrating parts for me was that we had to develop content that was uniformly endorsed by all the COGs across the state. And, you know, their job is different than my job. My job is I sit here and I tell you what I think you should do and what I think something means, and we have to make a decision and go. And they're not in that position, at least right now. And so we had to neutralize a lot of the things that were part of that presentation because the COGs themselves don't necessarily fully, they have not necessarily all wrapped their arms around exactly what they think each section means. And they don't want to be in a position where NECOG and WestCOG and MetroCOG and RiverCOG are saying different things, because that's going to create a lot of turmoil as you see developers that are go to one community and they're told one thing. And so I can tell you I can give you what we have, and I'm talking to you based upon my review and different pieces of information that I have. But guidance will be coming out from the COGs on the components they have involvement with once they figure out what they.
So, Mike, clearly, this is a lot for small commissions,
Yep.
you know, in these municipalities in
There's a lot
Connecticut
of
to take
it.
in. I mean, this is a lot. This is what we're gonna do tonight. Please keep
I have a
going over
question.
number
Can I
two,
ask you?
please.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt you.
No, go
Sir,
ahead, Paul. No, go ahead, please.
I want to understand this thing on the number.
Mhm.
So hypothetically, we border on, you know, New Haven, Woodbridge, and then some fictitious town that's really rural. Is New Haven gonna, because New Haven is so dense already, is New Haven gonna have a number for more growth, even if they're already, you know, as congested as it is?
So, yeah, we don't have the methodology yet, so we don't know exactly what they're going to come up with. But it's not going to be as simple as, you know, I think the first thing that people were thinking of was they're going to give us the number that will get us from the percentage we're at to 10%, that is not the math they're doing, because then that's very simple math. We
Yeah.
already know it.
Right.
So yes, I think that New Haven's number is going to be much larger than what you're going to get here, but most of housing, we do BZA reviews for New Haven, we have for a couple of years. Their housing is pretty much all as of right. So it's a completely different perspective because those numbers can be achieved, I think, more rapidly, but we just don't know yet.
So we're not going to get, you know, quote unquote penalized. What I thought when I first heard this, if New Haven's dense enough, they're not going to take that number and dump it onto the surrounding towns
No.
because they're okay.
It's going to be by community. Well, it'll be, but the COG is going to have to look at that. And right, so now you're talking a COG which represents its members, right? And there's a lot of connection from the town up to the COG and the COG down to the town, aside from planning and zoning. So they have some responsibility to be both realistic and appropriate in what they, you know, they're not going to say, okay, we got 10 towns, we got 100 units, everybody gets 10.
Right.
I would hope not.
Like,
It
when
makes
do
no
we have to
sense.
decide to go it alone as a town?
You have, I
Or-
believe, 30 days from when you make that number. You'll have a window, it's not a huge window,
It's
to
a
say,
It's a month.
yeah, to say, okay,
A month?
the COG has told us 250,000 units, we don't like it, we're gonna go away.
Who votes? Us or the selectmen?
I don't know that.
Let's hope it's selectmen.
I vote to select.
I think that you're
This
going
is-
to, we were part of drafting the RiverCog Regional Affordable Housing Plan. And so the way that they did it is they had a plan, plan document, and then each town had an annex. So each town had a chapter that they called an annex, which was how that town was going to address the affordable housing component when we were doing affordable housing plans. I would imagine that the regional component, the regional growth plans that we're talking about here are going to be very similar in their approach. The COGs are not going to draft these things and light their communities on fire by saying a whole bunch of stuff that is completely out of there. And frankly, like recording off, they're not experts in your town. They don't know all the things. They're not gonna read the regs and drive around town and say, okay, they're gonna do this. They're gonna wanna come here because they wanna get that information from you. So I think you're more than likely gonna participate in the regional plan.
Well, we're gonna have to increase our discussion with the
You're in
Board of
charge.
Selectmen, with different regional cogs, and, we're gonna have to change some of what we do here and how we do. This is a small town.
Yeah.
But we're gonna have to,
I think just
please,
the
Mel, go ahead.
Important part to pick up is that, like, this is not immediate, like,
Right.
OPM has not even created the definitions yet, those aren't due until May. And then even then, I don't know the timeline between when COGS have to react and OPM's,
I think the set date is July of 28.
July 28th. So the 30-day period, then the COGS have to formulate, I think, right?
Yeah,
Their
and
plan.
they're thinking, at least what I watched last week was that they might have you might have more time because they might get that stuff out earlier.
Yeah. So
Well, keep us informed.
Just-
all right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're still doing your presentation. We're gonna go right back to it.
No worries.
But this is very complex stuff.
me with
and,
whatever
you
you
have a board of commissioners that have to scramble to keep up. I mean, it looks like we have a little more time.
I have a presentation related question, if that's okay. If we could go back a second on the inclusionary zoning piece, I guess, what I'm trying to wrap my head around is whether or not the town could ever generate, a principal large enough in a trust for it to be an effective affordable housing mechanism to catalyze. And just trying to get a sense if that's a tool that's best set for a larger town like a Wallingford versus I mean, I get that there's a real estate value in Woodbridge, that maybe there's a factor there that I'm not thinking about, but just curious on your thoughts about what would be required to actually develop a meaningfully impactful trust fund that achieves the mission that it's intended to, separate from the questions of bureaucracy and all that other stuff that I think are valid.
So even communities that are very small have gone in this direction of having this for many reasons. It could be as simple as, if it's not a lot of money, you could use it to make ADA upgrades to an existing affordable housing or housing authority
I see,
project.
okay.
You could use it to, we had one town that had a historic building or historical society or a library, some community type building that had residential dwellings in it. And so they were able to enter into an agreement, and whatever the difference in the rate was, they used that money to basically pay the difference between the market rate and the affordable rate. Wasn't a lot of money. We, again, sort of a different perspective, but Mansfield is a small rural community, obviously, but has UConn, but has amassed multiple millions of dollars into this account over the last few years because they have essentially opened the tap on density in very focused areas. And so now they have been able to create fully restricted developments. The town that I live in, used a portion of their ARPA dollars, but same idea, sort of the public monies, to work with the developer. And the developer said, I can do it for $100,000. But I need 125, and the town said, well, we have this money, right? We'll contribute the 25, and now the project is viable. And we've now created housing units which we have control over. So it's the same as an open space fund where you put the money in and you have to use it for that purpose. But what you're hitting on is correct. The town should have an intent to. The town should be willing to use those funds for something, have an idea of what they're going to use. They're going to put it in there. You don't have, it doesn't expire. So it could be that you want to create a housing authority. I mean, there could be a lot of things that you might do. It could be that you're going to let it sit for 10 years and then do something with it. You don't have to send it right back out the door that same fiscal year.
And that fund controlled by the Board of Select people, basically.
Yeah, some towns take an approach of like, we need to have a very formalized discussion, create this fund and do this whole thing. If the money comes in and it's used for that purpose, it's going to go into that fund. So I don't know that there necessarily needs to be this big affirmative thing. But if you have places where it's appropriate to have increased density, and other places where maybe you want to have some control, that's a way, again, to have a little bit more opportunity to.
Like an example would be, you have this trust fund, development is spurring, you're getting deposits as a result, and then the town could use that to cover the cost of tax abatements for ADUs.
If it was going to be deed restricted, yes.
If it would be like a deed restricted.
Right.
As a way to.
Fund that
rather-
abatement that I talked
I
about,
gotcha.
yes.
Yeah, yeah.
As
Okay.
long as it goes to affordable housing.
Got it. Okay, thank you. That was my
I
question.
just want, on this tier one, with the criteria, can you make it so that at least some of the units would be commercial, or you can't really, you can't do?
Not if they're coming in under the summary review by statute.
So in other words, in that commercial zone, you could lose some commercial
Yeah.
properties, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, and that to me is sort of the biggest negative in communities that have, I mean, almost every community have struggling commercial grand lists, but you have this idea that for decades and decades and decades, you've been figuring out how to define and determine what zones are appropriate where and what uses are appropriate in what zone, and now the state comes in and says, well, 0 to 9 residential, it's by right. And, you know, the concern that creates a non-conforming issue for the adjacent commercial zone or commercial property, because up until a minute ago, we're supposed to have a commercial neighbor. I've done some work in towns where they've had concerns that the housing, which is coming second, is going to have, you know, the residents are going to have some negative impacts immediately because they're adjacent to uses which are not necessarily compatible with residential. You know, what if you had a quarry, for example? I know that's, again, a crazy example, but, you know, you have the developer saying, I'm going to go and do 9 units here, and it was never contemplated that adjacent commercial use would ever be near a residential use because it's in a commercial zone. So there's, this thing I think is going to blow up a little bit, and I think you might see some tweaks to it, but from now until July 1, we've got to.
I got one more kind of off the wall question. In any of these regs or anything being contemplated, assuming towns don't ever make progress towards the 10% goal, is any of the legislation conversations about the state overruling town charters and local TPZs to force the sale of public land for affordable housing?
I have never heard that.
Okay.
But as part of the housing growth plan, you will have to not just say, hey, I adopted this affordable housing plan and it's been sitting on a shelf for 5 years and now we've revised it. You are going to have to demonstrate progress to the things in the plan. And there is discretionary monies that, you know, can be tied to some of that stuff. So there is some incentive. I don't know the correlation off the top of my head, but there's also components of the bill which ties an increase of 5% in the reimbursement percentage if you're building a school. So there's certain things you can do within the bill that the bill says, hey, you can now do this. And if you do it, you get an extra 5% from the state if you're building a new school.
And Mike, if I understand correctly, then the incentive, for example, starting with tier 1, there's like a twofold incentive. The first is having a point of view about the development that will happen or could happen in an area. And I have questions about the legal parameters of how far you can go on each of these, but my guess is like that's to the benefit of the town to say, instead of not doing anything, do something, right, to like get your handle on it. And then the second piece is it would count as an action that OPM and the legislature would review that a town is taking seriously its housing plan. And on this one, it's a kind of like a freebie, considering it's your incentive too to actually do the thing, and other actions like that, other regulations that would be changed.
I think that I don't know fully, but I think if we went beyond just the summary review in commercial zones, then that is something that could potentially play into the regional growth plan. I think that just the commercial stuff, because it's required.
Got it. Okay.
I'm just thinking of, to the extent that we have control over it, how do we do that?
Yeah.
But you know, there's the other benefit to the COGS sort of trying to be unified in their perspective on this, and the state really, is if 169 towns say, we think that the summary review process means A, B, C, and D, well, then at least for a period of time, that's what it's gonna mean. There's no case law on it, zero.
Right.
It's not defined in statute for the way, for what it is that we're talking about. So no one can walk in and say, well, this is what it means, so your reg is wrong. They would be trying their hand at that sort of after the fact. So sort of being unified in that, I think, will help us define what case law might find it to mean down the road. But yeah, I think like come March, there's gonna be a lot more on this because the cogs are gonna start pushing out stuff. So
Could you put a inclusionary zoning requirement on your tier 1, your 1 to 9 unit?
I thought about that on my way down here, and I'm not sure how that would go, because the statute says you have to allow it by summary review. So that was a question that came up for me. I don't know that off the top of my head.
Seems like one of the issues that I've seen with inclusionary zoning is that it has not been as successful as towns want at actually generating affordable housing. Either they set it too high, or it's the issues that we had with our incentive zoning. So I can imagine some towns trying to set it too high in their 1 to 9 unit for the goal of not actually allowing any residential housing. But if you set it at 20% or 10% or something, so you had at least one unit in every development, at least that would give us some affordable housing, as get us down the road.
Yeah, Mansfield's approach was, and again, I'm not trying to suggest that Woodbridge is Mansfield, but we just finished rewriting all their housing stuff. They had a inclusionary zoning requirement. They allowed you to buy your way out of it through the fee in lieu of process at a cost of construction value. They then have this fund, which has got a couple of $1 million in it for from various different things. And the response from the commission when we went through and rewrote all their housing stuff, because sort of similarly, they had learned they had some positives and some negatives that they took away from the housing developments that have been approved and constructed. So we amended the regs for that. But they also decided, okay, we've got money in the thing, we figured this all out, we're done with the fee. We don't want developers to be able to buy their way out of it, because they almost always will. And now that we have something we can use, and we've gotten some of the developments that don't have anything, we're gonna now hold the line. So they went from 10 to 20% of their inclusionary requirement, and you cannot buy your way out of it. So
But they have that's mostly student housing, the development, the density there?
it depends. I mean, they would love to be able to prohibit it from being student housing, but the fact of the matter is you just can't. And probably only a third to a half of the units that they've approved in the last few years are going to come online or are online. But they have a fully affordable project that's going up, and so some other stuff. So it has given them the ability to be able to do something with it. But yes, they did get to this point of saying, okay, we're done. You're not buying your way out of it. You're going to construct, and then pump their numbers up, because again, at 10%, you're not making large strides towards reaching your number.
So that I understand this, Mike, an example of, in a hypothetical situation where that could apply to Woodbridge, is enough developers come and buy their way out of the requirements that are included in the inclusionary language, and at some point we say, oh, we now have enough revenue in this trust fund to cover any ADUs. I like the sort of framing of, this covering the tax abatement that might be extended to ADUs. When we say this pot of money is big enough to cover those tax abatements and we don't want anymore, is there any statutory reason why that inclusionary zoning switch can't be flipped on and off? I mean, basically, like you just described. No, okay.
Nope. It is something you have at your disposal, but not something you're required to do or can't. Yeah, you can amend it, remove it, add it later. It's just it's authorized by statute.
It's hard for me to imagine that there is an area of the town that people would agree on that this, that where we could implement this sort of density, where there's demand and also that people would be,
Please.
yeah, that there's enough, you know, we,
Yes.
there, yeah, I mean, some public comment said, oh, it should only be limited to the flats, but there's also, you know, less developable land in the flats, and while I like the idea, I don't know that, I think as we're looking, and to prioritize your work, I think looking at the tiers of the opportunity housing and looking at the ADUs is probably a more fruitful use of your time for recommendations to us. Because I just imagine getting really bogged down in trying to figure out where we want to, I mean, we're always gonna have to talk about where we wanna have density, but if this trust fund idea is, we have to, you know, there has to be somewhere that is in high demand and we want to approve that, and then we're going to take those dividends to be able to do our own development somewhere else where we can make density. There's a lot of layers that it's hard to imagine.
And on that, right, so again, some of this stuff just intuitively, I'm trying to figure out, if a developer buys their way out of the affordable requirement, that's just adding a higher threshold of needing more affordable units, right? I'm buying my way out and put money in a kitty, so the stuff that I'm building is market rate, which lowers the percentage of affordable units, and I've got money in a kitty. So I understand, I fully understand what you're talking about with the tax abatements for the ADUs, but I don't think that to me doesn't solve the problem.
Can I give
That
you
just kicks the can.
a hypothetical that I'm not endorsing, but I'm thinking as a way of maybe thinking about it, is say an alternate universe, the golf course, there's gonna be development at the Woodbridge Country Club, and and there's gonna be commercial there, and there's people who want, you know, Cory Walk in Oxford, say, as an example.
Yeah.
And there was community support. And so you put that, I can see it working there, because you get some density increases there. And if you don't, then we get affordable housing there. You put together a large fund, and then if there was another piece of land that Woodbridge already owned, say someone had said like, oh, we should build a new school there at the golf course as well, and then someone developed, and then you take that trust fund and you build 100% affordable housing on Beecher in replacing the school, and that gets us our 30 units, that whatever the number is that COG tells us. That is a path I can imagine. I can't really imagine. It's a possible path with a lot of stars that have to align, that would make this buying density thing possibly feasible in my mind. I still don't know that that's realistic enough for us to spend a lot of time thinking about it, but that's something that I can.
There's nothing AD or incremental. That's the nuclear option.
But the thing is, that's the quickest. If the point of, and that's what the discussion at the last hearing was, to try to get to a moratorium, to try to get to those number of units, then 10% of new housing is, as you pointed out, is really we're moving both needles, and it's not really. And ADUs, I mean, I'd be very interested to know what anyone's estimate of how many units we could get with ADUs.
That's the question.
Because then we could really, think about that. But if the marching orders, if public, and I'm not saying I agree with it, but if what most of the people in the town want us to do is to get to that moratorium, then the way to do that is with density of affordable housing and higher percentages than 10% or 5% or.
On the ADU piece, am I wrong in seeing that one of the challenges of it is actually the 10-year deed, that effectively the town is a bit out of luck after the 10-year expiration? and it's almost, I see it as a short-term solution, but like structurally not helpful long-term, because once those units expire, let's say you increased 50 units as a result, you lose those 50 units unless the homeowner wants to maintain.
Right.
So there's a challenge there, one, and then on I'm fairly new to town, moved here about 2 years ago, like aware of the challenges, and it just feels like what's different about this town, I guess, than like a Mansfield is like the land is coveted by members of the town.
Yep.
And we're having a hard time, at least as I see the public debate, is helping people understand that where there is opportunity with land available to maximize its use, because not leaning into density creates another structural challenge. So it's like this twofold problem. We go the ADU route, in 10 years the town is structurally in a really bad place. If the town also doesn't maximize its opportunities that it has, then you lock yourself in and you're looking at different parts of the town that you didn't want to before. And like is that like a fair assessment of like what we should be also thinking about long term?
Yeah, so density is something that's scary to a lot of people. The less dense we allow housing to be, at least until we get to a better place with where we are with the number of affordable units, et cetera, the more land is going to need to be chewed up to get to that number.
Yeah.
So if we need to get however many, 35 units, we could sprinkle that across the whole town, or we can say, we're gonna focus density here, and we're gonna just let this get pumped up and be sort of one and done. So 99.9% of the community is unchanged. And so I think there's value to that perspective. It may not be the right perspective here, but it is, unless the town is going to partner or find money or do something where it is legitimately at the table with the developer and a landowner, what zones we establish, what parcels folks at this table, the folks in the room, in the community think are appropriate, won't get us anywhere if the market and the developers can't make the project work. So we have to be in a position to be responsive to the projects that the market brings to us, and then put the regulations in a place where we can cover as much ground as possible when that happens. So there's definitely a fine line, but the solution to this is, the affordable housing goal that Woodbridge has is not 4 units here, 2 units here, 6 units there. It's just not what people are seeing, unless there's a sort of other factors. It's just too expensive. $350 a square foot.
Do you think developers won't do that?
It's too, land costs and everything else that's associated with it. You just can't get the rates you need at the affordable level when you're building 4 units, right? You're talking, 60, maybe 4 units, you're probably talking between $6,000 and $7,000 a month would be your max cap if you just looked at, didn't worry about bedrooms, et cetera. And when you look at the construction costs, at something along those lines, $1,000 a unit is $350,000 a unit, or 1,000 square feet a unit, times 4, it just doesn't work. Which is why they go in and they want to hit either the affordability numbers, because then they can get low-income housing tax credits, and then that makes sense.
Yeah.
Or they want to get enough density that they can start making it up, because at some point your construction costs start to be reduced in your square foot per unit cost.
I had a question really quick on this tier 1 thing. So this is going to happen. I don't see developers even lining up for 9 units. I mean, that's expensive too, right? I mean,
Yep.
But it is coming. So say it happens and we have like a ton of people lining up to do 9 units all over the place, right? It would be good to have some restriction or like some guidance on that, right? Because what we don't want is someone coming in and just doing the lowest common denominator in Woodbridge, right? Like where it looks like it's residential, but it ends up looking like a strip mall kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know where we go with that, but I'd like to understand like maybe what other towns are doing, if you're counseling, it sounds like you talk with other towns a lot,
Yeah.
understand that, right?
Yeah, I don't know anybody that's any further along at this point, but yes, you certainly want to have some control of that. I suspect that this is not going to create the number of dwellings that the state thinks by adopting this language it will. There was some discussion sort of in the planner's world about the ADU mandate since it was adopted or enacted. And I don't know that there have even been 500 ADUs created statewide since the PA 2129. It just is, again, so expensive and so site and case specific that this has not led to this explosion of accessory dwelling units that everybody sort of felt was going to happen because it was by right. So I think for a lot of reasons, converting a commercial building to residential from a code standpoint is difficult. If you're on sewer, you need to pay an additional EDU fee or connection fee to your WPCA. That's not necessarily cheap. So there's a lot of things that would come into that. If there's any commercial component related, or they don't want to free up the commercial component later, your sprinklers, like there's a lot. Firewalls, exiting. So I don't think that on July 2nd, you're going to have 15 people here on your agenda lined up to try to get this, but you don't want to be in the reactive position because someone has sort of beaten you to that, and now you don't have that control.
And we can't say something like, okay, you wanted 9 units, but you have to put retail at the base. I think you already answered that, right?
I don't think you could allow it to be mixed use, but I don't think you could mandate it.
Okay.
So,
Couple questions. Let me just rein some stuff in.
yeah,
Mid-level, mid-sized developments, how many units is that typically?
it would be 9, and then, you could decide what that ceiling looked like if we ended up
There's
going.
no state mandates on that?
Nothing,
particular-
nope.
So this is just standard practice and land use, what mid-size means?
When we get to tier 3 and I sort of explain the process, I think it'll make more sense because it's very different. And so that's why I'm having this other category in the middle, which is the stuff that we can still control. Right, tier 1 is the stuff we can't.
So what is a large-scale residential development?
Well, I was very careful not to put numbers on there because I didn't want, like I said, to have
Understood. Yeah,
anything
no,
in front
just
of me.
trying, just to finish up.
It depends. It depends on, I think, where we go with density and what is appropriate. We can go through an exercise, if productive, about, there's a really old book on it that maybe isn't as helpful as it was 20 years ago called Visualizing Density, which gives you an idea of what something looks like. I can show you projects across the state and that I think are attractive or were successful. And we can talk about what those are from a density perspective and start to build a picture of what the commission thinks might be appropriate and where. And I think then we would back into some of those ceilings.
Understood. So, look, this is what I think we should do. We should get on the next agenda some more in-depth discussion on ADU language. So, off of your menu, where you're looking for some guidance.
Yep.
I think we should do the ADU stuff quickly and see what we can do in terms of adding language to our regs, making sure that we're incorporating state mandates and values, and really trying to legalize any that are presently there.
Yep.
So let's dig down a little bit on that. We better get some language around tier 1 in your opportunity housing amendment, because if that's coming here, even if a lot of people don't choose to take advantage of it, we should get some regulations around it.
Right.
So we have that coming. If that's coming July 1st, why do we focus right away on the ADU in the tier 1? Okay, a secondary concern, we'll do some more language on inclusionary zoning.
Yeah,
All
the
right, and
inclusionary.
maybe that's a little bit something we can look at in a few months or something, but we should get to the ADUs and the tier 1 pretty quickly. If, in terms of how we're using you, what the commission is doing. So with that laid out, any commissioners want to comment on that? What I just said? Like, is there,
I think Mel's insight about, the kicking the can down the road, for lack of a better term, or just putting us in a bad place structurally when that 10-year sort of statute of, or that time period is up. You certainly can imagine the potential for many people purchasing those properties to say, no thanks, we don't need the tax credit, and then we lose those affordable units. So just something to keep in mind. Doesn't mean we shouldn't explore it.
well, that could be 3 or 4 months away. That's it. Like, not years.
Sorry, what could be 3 or 4 months?
Well, I mean, looking at other options as well, like tier 2 or very high density in certain areas.
Sure.
or something.
Like, you could do a bunch of stuff. I mean,
Yeah,
it
I
doesn't
mean-
have to be one
Right,
theme.
right. I mean, this is gonna be a multifaceted approach to moving towards that 10%. And, but I'm just trying to give you some guidance on how fast, we could go.
So I want to just quickly go over number 3.
Please.
Because then I'm going to tell you I'm going to maybe explain what I think or how I can
Sure.
deal with this from a next step standpoint. So tier 3, I think is different in that it would apply to large-scale residential and or mixed-use developments. Again, the commission will define what large scale is, but from this approach standpoint, and I have a typo in there. We don't have increased distraction. I don't know why that's in there. So the special development district process is entirely separate from the traditional zoning, mechanism in that it's not, okay, we have this zone, okay, let's go to the use table and figure out what's allowed in this zone. Okay, let's get a special permit, we schedule a public hearing, we look at the setbacks, we look at the coverage. The special development district is a district that you define and create on paper, and you establish eligibility for, but that you do not actually land the zone for affirmatively sort of ahead of time. You say, it has to be a mixed-use development, it has to be on a state road, it has to be a parcel of at least 10 acres, it has to incorporate at least 2 different types of housing, it has to have a 100-foot buffer, it has to be blah, 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 and 40% open space. And then a developer comes to you and says, the parcel that I'd like to do this project on meets your eligibility standards. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to propose a zone map amendment that I'm going to take this development district that you've written on paper that's sort of in the sky, and I'm going to land it on this parcel that meets the criteria you've established. And I'm going to do that in conjunction with a master plan. And so that master plan is sort of a conceptual rendering of how they are going to achieve the intent of the district that you then use to determine the appropriateness of landing that zone. So the good news is they have not spent $500,000 on all their site planning, which means they're much more likely to want to take comments and suggestions into consideration. You have a lot more control over what that looks like because we're talking about it at a conceptual level. And because you're making a decision to land a zone, you have your planning hat on. And so when you have that planning hat on, you have much greater discretion in deciding yes or no. As you know, we talked about with special permits, those are for uses which you've already said are allowed. If they meet your special permit standards, you approve them. It is not this highly discretionary process. The master plan special development district process is. And so what that means is for larger developments that are done on a project by project basis, site by site basis, where it might make sense to have this project real close to the road for some reason, but another site way farther back, you can do that because you do that through the master plan process rather than saying, well, we have a 50-foot front yard setback. So everybody just broad brush, everybody makes the same. And so that creates flexibility because they can say, well, I can avoid this whole vernal pool here if you just give me a 20-foot side yard setback instead of the required 40. Okay, that makes sense. Boom. That process can happen through the master plan review here.
And that might theoretically have more affordable units and very high density in the same area, right? Is
Well,
that what you're saying?
those are all on the table, yes.
All of that is
Yes.
on the table.
Yes, but it's for large scale developments. We're not talking 20 units. We're talking about larger developments that involve either multiple parcels or larger amounts of land where the overall layout and compilation of the project is important for a number of reasons. And we really want to put on a site planning hat and talk about how this is all going to get laid out. I don't know all the parcels well enough in town, so the only one that I can reference here is like the golf course, right? Many towns would use this process for something like that because you can come up with a master plan without having to do all the engineering, all the drainage, and all the specific unit design, et cetera, and get that master plan landed. And now then we come back and do that site plan design at the end. It still has public hearings, so if you look at the bottom, you've seen I have like a little graphic.
I see that, yes.
There's still public hearings in the beginning, and then once they've got the master plan, they come back with a site plan which meets the master plan standards. That is site plan. And so that does not have a public hearing, but the only thing they can do is develop it in accordance with the master plan. So there's really no changes. The benefit there is that once they've gone through that master plan, there is less risk on the developer's standpoint, because they know they have a master plan that the commission has approved. And so it can work, again, the front end of the process can be sort of pro-town, and the back end of the process, I think, can be pro-project. So that's why I want to create the tier 2, because we don't want to go to tier 3 for everything that doesn't go per the standards that the state has established.
And on that tier 3, I mean, that seems to align with this, with the Department of Housing's interest in what they're funding. They're funding large scale, and so it seems like the likelihood of enticing a developer on a parcel is higher in light of the fact that the state is incentivizing developers for that type.
Yeah.
Which the state, as I understand it, is not interested in funding 9-unit type development, so.
Yeah, you'd have to have like quadruple the number of Department of Housing employees to administer all the projects at 9. But I mean, more and more communities are seeing mixed-use projects in that we have buildings that serve different purposes on the same parcel or as part of the same project. But unless you have a really, really strong market and really good, transit and really high rents, et cetera, less and less banks and developers are interested in pursuing commercial on the first floor and residential above. That sounds really sexy, but is not widely applicable. So you're more likely to have mixed-use components on the site, but not in the same building.
Like a quarry walk too.
Sure, yes. And the market is also pushing, a lot of developers, their residents want tenant amenities, which tend to be on the ground floor, right? Whether it be a bowling alley or barista station or dog wash, those tenant amenities happen on the ground floor and not necessarily leaving room for commercial uses. So it's, again, very different than what we're talking about, but if we want to have control over larger projects or the development of
No,
larger
I understand
parcels.
it. Yeah,
It's a
it's
good
It's a
tool.
good,
yeah,
it's a good breakdown.
yeah. No, that's it's helpful.
So I would love you to tell me that I can work with Nick to get you some more information on the legislation. I have some questions that I think you've asked directly or indirectly that I need to get better answers on. And I think that, it makes sense to continue with the ADU stuff, but because July 1 is coming, maybe continue to pursue the opportunity housing amendments, sort of at least maybe fleshing out each of these tiers so that you have a better idea and then can say, okay, we love it, we hate it. But if you are sort of cautiously open to continuing the discussion, then I'd like to sort of take this to a Rev 2 and give you a little bit more.
Yeah, please do so.
Okay.
And I think, Mel articulated this, but this one specific question that, in case we decide there's a role for inclusionary zoning, I think it would be very interesting to know if that can be overlaid on like this tier 1 opportunity housing.
Yeah, that's one of the questions that I have we've got to answer.
The other thing, Nick had mentioned that he was gonna look into the possibility of a short-term moratorium. Didn't know what the regulations were. I don't know if it.
So that is one of the things that was changed with this legislation. And so I don't have that memorized to be able to recite it to you, but there were some additional things added to what can contribute to the number of points that you'll need to get to the moratorium. And at the event that I think you were at, and I don't know anybody else 2 weeks ago, I don't remember the guy from the LOB that was there, the aide of the speaker or whoever. He said that they've already recognized there are some issues with 8002 and they are already planning some tweaks and clarifications in the next session. So this may flesh out to be something a little bit different, but the changes are, I think, a little bit confusing in some respects, but we need to, I think, get some of this stuff answered or come up with our best answer for it and kind of see where that takes us.
So Mike, you'll be sending us some materials or something that we can read, right? I mean, there's tons of writing going on right now about
Yes.
this. If you just research it, okay.
Well, so I
But
can send you some of the
if you deal
long
with that-
narratives, or I
Yeah.
can send you the presentation, the slides from the seminar that I was part of, that the COGS gave to the planners 2 weeks ago.
Sure.
So that breaks out each of the components of the bill into sections and sort of at a high level what it
It would be very
That would
helpful.
be very helpful.
I mean, yeah. I think relevant to this discussion, I don't want to sidetrack us too much with sort of like what is the law saying and doing, but I think relevant to this discussion, so my understanding of, because there is a lot of interest in town about the 30G moratorium and how we get there, right? So we have fewer than 5,000 homes in town, so I think our number to hit is 50 points, right, on this new point scale. So my understanding is that you get points related to the percent AMI for an affordable unit, 1 point for 80%, 1.5 points for 60% or below. The reason this is relevant, I think, is that let's say the Fountain Street development happens. Let's say we could snap our fingers and make those units appear. That would give us 21 points, right, of the 50. It's a 7-year retrospective look. Tell me if anything I'm saying sounds wrong. It's a 7-year retrospective look at what's been done in town within the last 7 years to establish affordable units. If those Fountain Street apartments existed, that would be 21 points. I think that if we could find and deed restrict ADUs in town, that those would also then add to the points that we need to achieve the 50 points for the moratorium. Does that sound generally correct?
It does. Two of the things that were added in the bill are more legislative, affirmative things that you can also do that would be eligible for like, additional sort of categories that can generate points. Again, I don't know what those are off the top of my head to be able to speak to them, but yes, you're sort of talking about cobbling together, okay, we do a little bit of this and then we get a little bit of that, and that gets us to the percentage or the points more quickly than trying to, which I think is probably the right.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to say that it's very much in my mind that we should be moving towards trying to achieve a moratorium from 830G. And so the potential problems with ADUs notwithstanding, they are a mechanism because they exist, right? Because this is part of it. Those Fountain Street apartments don't yet exist, and so they don't yet generate any points until they exist. There may be ADUs in town that exist, so by regulation changes, we could generate a lot of points quickly. This is my
How do we
understanding.
get 21 points?
Well, it would be if those apartments were built, because 6 of them are at 80%, 6 of them are at 60%, right? So we get
So 12 out of almost 100 units, you're gonna get 21.
6 plus,
I don't know,
9.
I'm just,
maybe that's only 15. I'm sorry, I might be miscalculating, so they may only be 15. But
Well, I mean, I think that based upon what it sounds like and the fact that the decision has been appealed, who knows how long it will take.
Sure.
You need to get there needs to be a CO on the units for them to qualify. It's not just we've approved. And so,
yeah,
5
Yeah.
years.
yeah, those would have to exist. So, and I may have misspoken about the points. Maybe it's
That may be
15.
dead.
but it will contribute a portion,
Right.
but not enough or in the time that is gonna be valuable now. But, yeah, it's
Yeah.
all just sort of chipping away.
But I like what you outlined because I think you're suggesting a long-term structure.
Yeah.
And given the dynamics of this town, how we are being efficient with parcels that are available to get the most points out of them feels important. So I deeply appreciate the kind of structure that you provided because it's helping me just understand kind of like the options on the table just to kind of meet all the goals of a town that people love, a town that people can join and afford, and housing that is accessible. So appreciate it. Thank you.
The one reason why I think, and we don't need to make decisions or deviate from them tonight, that the inclusionary zoning is sort of worth including on your, or why I did, is that there are many developers, many property owners that are just never gonna be interested in affordable housing from an ongoing management perspective.
Yeah.
You have to verify income annually. You have to file that report with the town. You've got to do all of this reporting and documentation and vetting, and then potentially having to evict a tenant of yours who may have been there for 5 years because they no longer make, they make too much money. So it is not necessarily that a project or developer isn't interested in creating a rent structure where they make less money on the affordable units. It's all of the other stuff that makes it unattractive. And so that's where the buying their way out of it ends up working for them, because then they're structurally, them just not being set up to manage those units long-term still allows you to convert that capital into those affordable units existing somewhere else. So, it's unfortunate, but the reality of what is required to maintain an affordable unit is just something that many folks are not willing to participate in, the ongoing, reporting and income verification and all that stuff. And so there, that opportunity exists, but I think I've talked to you enough.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. We'll see you
I'm
next-
confused, so I'm sure
We'll see
you
you
all are
next-
confused. We're all
We'll see you
confused.
next month and you can confuse us further. Okay? So thank you very much.
I can guarantee that in another month I can still be confusing. That box is probably already checked. Everybody got one of these? I have 2 extras. Okay. I'll send this, and I'll send some of the stuff we talked about so you guys can have it.
Thank you. All right, under our work session, we're gonna go to point number 2. If you take a look at your agenda, it reads updated plan of conservation development, House Bill number 8002. So as you can see, as we just presented, the House Bill has quite a few changes coming our way. One of the things, just to mention it, again, I don't think there's a big rush on this, but the affordable housing plan to be filed with the state is going to be replaced with a housing growth plan. And there, it looks like there's gonna be some other changes to the POCD. So under point number 2, what we'd like to do is establish a committee with some different boards and commissions in town to be on that committee and possibly suggest some changes that we need to have to the POCD. So I'm working with the town attorney to come up with a scope for a subcommittee, if you will. That subcommittee, under Connecticut statute section 8-23, which is the preparation, amendment, or adoption of the plan of conservation development, section A, letter subset C, includes setting up a committee that this commission can establish, and then that committee can work with some different boards and commissions to then take a look at our current plan of conservation development, which we just approved, and see how, if at all, it might need to change to reflect some of this new regulation. And we can pull in some folks from, Conservation Committee, maybe the Business Development Committee, different other committees and commissions in town, have them on that particular committee. And we're gonna have a scope, some date, number of members of that, and 1 or 2 folks from this commission can oversee and be on that committee. That is a mouthful, I know, that I'm throwing out there, all right?
So that
But
committee will then
report to us.
provide its recommendations or its
Yes,
assessment.
and then the idea, the goal of it is for them to have like a report or something like that they can give us and say, hey, this is how we think you should change the POCD.
Right.
Or, maybe conservation might have some choice, discussion about it. We now have, the Housing Committee has become the Housing Commission. So the Housing Commission can have a member on this committee. So what I will have for you folks at the next meeting in March is a pathway ahead to set up that committee. 1 or 2 of us can be on that committee, and then that committee is then going to inform the commission onto what changes, if any, we need to have in the POCD. And if there's anything in the POCD that any of those commissions have in mind that they have a problem with or something, we can look at that. Couple of things around it. I think to establish a committee, we do need the committee to have agendas. Don't be nervous, Chris. It needs to have agendas, formal minutes. I do think it needs to be public, but we might be able to do Zoom meetings, okay? And we'll have a start date and an end date, and we'll kind of oversee it. We will be the oversight commission to look into that committee and how it goes. And I'll be looking for some volunteers, 1 or 2 from this board, to be in that committee, and I'm volunteering to be one of the people that will be on it. And I think that process will serve the town well to integrate different pieces of information from throughout the town. Any thoughts or comments on that?
Does the membership of this committee have to draw from town commissions, or can it include other
It,
members of the town?
it is so broad that the statutory language, the commission may appoint one or more special committees to develop and make recommendations. Membership of any special committee may include residents of the municipality,
Okay.
representatives of local boards dealing with zoning, inland wetlands, conservation, public works, finance, redevelopment, and so forth. So it's a specific statutory,
Great.
type guidance,
Thank you.
okay? Next meeting, I plan to have one sheet of paper that's easy to follow, people can follow it and say, okay, here's this committee. And I know that there are people in town from conservation or development that would want to be on this committee. Chris, we will have to work with you because that is, don't worry. You have to have minutes, you have to agendas. We will work this and staff it appropriately and make this workable. And again, it'll be Zoom meetings is what we're gonna try to do, if at all possible, so people don't have to come. And there'll be public comment available. We're taking this and putting it all together. We should have something for you to react to as commissioners the next time we meet, and you can take a look at it. But I think it'll help the town as well. I think it'll bring in different points of view a little bit, and people will have a feeling that they had a say in over some of this. And some of the legislation that is coming out is moving so fast, it's hard to keep up with it. And what we have to, maybe this committee can kind of
I
help
think
get
including
that out.
townspeople who are not on commissions and boards and what have you is super important.
Yes.
My only question is, how are we going to notify people? I mean, we've been criticized significantly because people haven't been properly communicated with, supposedly. So how are we going to communicate with people in town to let them know we're inviting your input, we're inviting involvement? You're the expert.
No, Paul, that's a really good.
I could wear a
that's
sandwich
good.
board down by Blue Check in the morning.
Yeah. Paul, come up with some ideas, send them to me, we'll incorporate them.
Okay.
But really, let's just work, this is not an application, so there's more,
Right, no, but that's why I
so
think
it's easier.
look, we're going to be around for for many of the meetings. So to have all of us seated on a committee is the same. You get the same criticism from folks as before. We only need. I mean, if you want to sit or one of you guys want to sit, great. But I think it's really important to get the town folk involved. We can use social media. We can use Mika's emails. Plenty of ways.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Woodbridge Chronicle could mention that.
Yeah, there's plenty. I mean, there's no downside.
There's no
The biggest
downside.
problem you'd have, Jeff, is that too many people want to be involved.
Yeah, I don't want a committee with 30 people on it.
That's your
That would be-
biggest problem.
You
It
know,
won't
and
happen.
So Paul, throw out, how many people should we have? 8 people, 10 people?
I would not. 10's a lot, but I wouldn't max it at 10.
I mean,
Otherwise, it gets a little.
So,
if you're trying to get
the-
actual work.
So
done,
on the
it's a little
agenda for
unmanageable.
next time, Chris, please put that we're gonna, focus on this committee. I'll have something for people to react to, then you can read it and say, we're not doing that, or yes, we'll do this. And I have to make sure that, this is actually coming from the Board of Selectmen too, there's BOS support for this approach, okay? And it's a statutory approach to it as well in the Connecticut General Statutes. So I think it makes sense to do this. All right?
You're doing a great job.
What's that, sir?
I'm really impressed.
About what?
Your job you're doing.
Oh my goodness, thank you.
Fantastic.
You bring me pizza then.
No.
Oh.
That's why you get paid the big bucks. I'm just a volunteer.
All right, folks. All right. SCROG, we don't have a SCROG update, do we?
No.
We have a Scrog.
We don't have a SCROG member
We have
now.
a brand new SCROG
We have a new SCROG, okay.
next meeting, try.
Yes.
If we have a-
All right.
And Clay King Scrap.
Point number 4 in the work session, report regarding the Housing Committee. As I stated, the Board of Selectmen, I think it's September of 2024 turned, excuse me, 2025.
They haven't met yet.
They
The
turned
commission
it
hasn't-
into,
A commission, and the commission hasn't met yet,
all right, so,
because they're trying to find staff, and I'm not raising my hand, so it's okay.
Chris, you don't do enough of the town right now.
He's gonna throw a microphone
Chris
at you.
Sullivan does more work for the town. It's just incredible. We're a tightly staffed town. Leave it at that. She does a lot of things.
And there's a hiring freeze, so don't worry about it.
Oh, there you
Anyway,
go. All right.
no, we have nothing on that, but they will start meeting potentially in March, so. we'll find out.
So Chris is also the zoning enforcement officer, which is point number 5. Any comments that we should be aware of, Chris, or
Nothing
anything
that's
else?
earth-shattering that you need to be aware of. Obviously, you know that the 830G is sitting in wetlands right now. They did have their first hearing on January 21st. There were 2 interveners that filed, and so similar to when you did 804, there are interveners. They're using the same consultants.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah, sure.
But it's it's a different kettle of fish. So we'll see where it goes. I mean, they did raise some interesting points. So it will be continued. One of the things we need to do is have the wetlands reevaluated, and with as much snow as we got out there, that's
take
not
time.
gonna
Oh,
happen
yeah,
right
take
away.
time.
Take time.
So.
Are there statutory limitations on this? Like, does inland have
It's,
to get
it's the
it?
same thing as you do, so they have to close the hearing within 35 days. The applicant can give them an extension of time. So we'll see where it goes, you know.
May I ask, this is, I guess, a legal question, but I'd like your opinion, and if we need to ask Nick, so be it. So that matter is not currently before our commission, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so when somebody comes up to me at Netco and says, I want to tell you about the 830G, I don't have to throw my beer at them and run the other way, is that right? They
How
can,
do you throw your beer in the
I
first
will,
place?
I will ask
Thanks.
for some advice from, because, yeah, it's gonna be tricky.
Thank you.
So-
Well, and to Paul's point, maybe the first selectman could put something in one of his newsletters or something and says, this is the status of it, and then people just know, something like that.
Or they
a
can watch the,
newspaper.
we had a very, very, very large turnout at the hearing. I think it was bigger than what you guys had for 804, if you can believe that one.
Well, it's across the street
So
from the
glad it's
school.
not- we're not there.
Oh,
It was different because they weren't throwing stones at the commission members because they weren't reacting to a change that had been made to regs by commission. So it was a little
Nice
different
being those
feel.
kind of commissions.
But I still wish that, I mean, it's hard for the public because the public is obviously very emotional about this. But, you know, I just wish that they could be a little bit more respectful and not just shout out in the middle of a hearing, and because you're trying to get all that information out, and it's very tough for everybody who's doing it, but we'll muddle our way through it. You know, I think the commission has good experts of its own, Inland Wetlands Agency. Nick is there to help guide them. Nick Zito is the new chair of the Inland Wetlands Agency, and so he's walking in just like Jeff did, trial by fire, you know, welcome aboard, boom, here's your hearing. So we'll see where it goes, but
okay, Chris, any correspondence received?
I gave
You did some handouts of
I
some
did,
stuff,
I
right?
gave you the handout of the little newsletter.
Yep.
And then there is, I gave you the thing from, the Connecticut Federation, which puts out the little newsletter. So if you want to go to that, let me know. I did watch, I mean, I know Aaron went to one 2 weeks ago on, the new House bill. I went to one, or a Zoom one next week. They're supposed to be coming out with another synopsis of the whole thing, so I will forward that out to
That'd be
everybody.
it would be very
It doesn't hurt
helpful.
to have, you know, you may pick up threads from here or there. So as stuff comes out, I'll definitely forward that to all of you, as well as any, you know, to your new members. You do have to have training completed within a year. There should be a Connecticut Bar Association training thing coming up probably in March. I haven't seen anything on it yet. But it is via Zoom, it's on a Saturday, and you can get all the credits you need in that one fell swoop thing. You always have to have an hour's worth of housing as part of the training and whatnot, so, but I'll get that out to you. And if you've got any questions, you know, please email me, and if I don't have an answer, I'll find an answer from somebody. So,
Chris, you emailed the commission some minutes.
Yes, I
Was
did.
that September 2nd? Was that, you sent those, right?
I don't know what I sent.
No, because
September,
I
October, no. Do
I
I
read
think
them.
October
October,
6th, I'm
November.
still working on, I'm almost done.
you want to approve the 4 that you sent?
I do.
Sure.
So which,
Which is before the.
September
September,
2nd,
October,
October
November.
25th, the 21st, November 3rd, January.
and she sent Journey 5 too.
Can I ask like a really ignorant question?
Yes. There
I'm
aren't any.
assuming
There's none of those, Mel,
Fair
where
enough.
we work
Not
together.
as
like that.
steeped in Robert's rules. I don't vote on minutes and stuff like that 'cause I'm an alternate, right?
If you're not seated, I
Right.
think you don't do it.
Unless you're seated, you don't vote. So for this meeting, because I was negligent, because I'm trying to clean my desk downstairs.
They were on-
Normally
sent
what I
an
do
email
is I come with a
September?
list showing
Got
who's
it.
in
Okay.
rotation.
Yeah.
So what happens is you'll each come up first in rotation. Unfortunately,
Ben,
if we
you're
don't
just
need
so
you,
good.
one night we move to the next one because it's gotta be
Which ones are
something
these,
where
please?
Yep.
Yeah,
I
9-2.
can do
Go
this
slow, hold on.
simply.
Which
Yeah,
one?
yeah, yeah. I'll go.
And.
9-2?
So.
And then the next one?
So if
10-21.
somebody's off here, or if they recuse themselves, then in that rotation sequence, you'll be seated.
Got it. Okay.
And whatnot, so
So I get to
hopefully it
just
works
observe.
out fairly, it just depends on who shows up, who doesn't show up.
Then we also.
I move we approve the September minutes.
So we have the September 2nd, October 21, November 3rd, and January 5 were distributed. Mr. Schatz, are you motioning to approve those that were distributed?
I could do that, although I missed one of those meetings, but I'm happy to.
You
want-
can
you want to do the
approve,
blanket?
you can actually approve, even if you missed it, you can still review it and vote in favor of
Do
it.
we want to
Yes,
do
we
them all in one packet?
Sure.
I move we approve all the minutes that Chris emailed, which were, and Ben, you can read the date, oh, here are the dates, sorry. Which were September 2nd, October 23rd, 21st, November 3rd, and January 5th of 26.
Second. All in favor?
I have one, sorry.
Oh, we have a
Discussion?
discussion.
I have one, yes.
Wait a minute, who seconded, and then we'll discuss.
I did.
Okay, thank you.
My last name has two N's. You know,
Oh, my God.
I
Oh,
know
my
that, I'm
goodness.
sorry.
With that caveat.
Which,
everything
oh,
is
well, I'll
correct.
find it. It's okay, I'm Chris with a K, and I can't stand it when I sign things Chris with a
So
K, and
do we have a
people write me
seated, do
Chris
we
with
have
a
a
C.
seated alternate for this meeting?
I just explained to them that I didn't seat anybody because I neglected to
But
bring
you
in
have a
my sheet.
quorum.
We have a
Alright,
quorum.
All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? All right, Chris, thank you.
May I make a, has people had time to review the December 8th minutes, or do we want to wait on
I have
those?
not reviewed
Okay,
those.
fine.
Yeah,
I didn't
we'll
read
just, we'll hold on to those.
Motion to adjourn?
Wait, hold
Move
on.
to adjourn, that's my
This is
job.
Paul, that always goes to the right.
We good?
We're good, Paul.
To adjourn.
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye.